Yeah, I think we probably no longer think of the United States as an experiment, as a fragile experiment that might fail. Certainly we are aware that our policies might fail, in whether it's foreign policy or domestic policy of one sort or another, but very few people fear that the United States might go the way of Yugoslavia or of the Soviet Union. But in the 19th century, and right down to, I think, 1865, this idea that the United States might fail was a prevalent part of American political culture. The fear was there. And I think that Northern victory in the Civil War and the reconciliation process after that we were talking about a little while ago, by the end of the 19th century had erased that fear from American minds. And I think also the success of this democratic experiment in winning a war and consolidating the nation in the aftermath of that war was a powerful example, had a powerful influence, I should say, in other nations. I have written, and it's in the outline that Professor Velvel, Dean Velvel has presented, that the British Reform Act of 1867 was powerfully influenced by the outcome of the American Civil War because it legitimated the idea of a broader, that a nation based on manhood suffrage could in fact defend itself, survive, and the British Reform Act of 1867 doubled the British electorate, gave many members of the working class the right to vote for the first time, and from then on, I think in Europe through the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century, they were moving toward a form of democracy. Of course, in France in 1870, the Second Empire went down, and the Third Republic, based on a kind of democratic political order, was established, and other countries were moving toward universal suffrage in the late 19th and early 20th century. So the idea that America was the sort of only democratic country and therefore vulnerable to these counter-democratic tendencies in the Western world faded away because basically democracy triumphed in 1865 and triumphed in Western Europe in the next couple of generations. So I think that idea of fragility of this democratic experiment pretty much had disappeared from American political culture by 1900 or even earlier.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.